The hungry alien child. The night was cold, and the wind carried dust across the empty colony road. The human man walked alone, his boots heavy on the metal ground. He had been working all day repairing machines in the mining camp. His body was tired, and his stomach growled for food. In his small bag, he carried a packet of bread and a bottle of water, the last things he had for the night. As he walked, he heard a sound. It was soft, like a whimper. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it again. A small cry, weak, hungry, afraid. The man stopped and looked around. The streetlights flickered, showing only broken walls and shadows. The colony had been attacked months ago, and many people had left, but the sound told him that someone was still here. He followed the noise. Behind a broken supply crate, he saw her, a small alien child. She was thin, almost like a shadow. Her skin was pale with strange blue lines glowing faintly, as if her veins carried light. Her eyes were large, golden, and full of fear. Her clothes were torn and covered in dust. She looked like she had not eaten for days. The man froze. The alien girl stared at him, her body shaking. She looked at the bag in his hand. The smell of bread had reached her nose. Her lips parted, and a faint sound came out. Food. The man's heart tightened. He knew the history. Humans and her kind had not always been friends. Many colonists whispered that aliens were dangerous, that helping them could bring trouble. But when he saw her trembling, he did not see an enemy. He saw a child, a hungry, lonely child. He slowly crouched down. "Hey," he said softly, his voice calm. "I will not hurt you." The girl did not answer. Her golden eyes stayed locked on the bag. She looked ready to run, but she was too weak. The man opened the bag and pulled out his bread. He tore it in half. Slowly, carefully, he placed one piece on the ground and pushed it toward her. The girl's body tensed. For a moment, she did not move. Then hunger won. She crawled forward on shaky arms and grabbed the bread. Her small fingers clutched it tight. She sniffed it once, then took a bite. The sound of her chewing was desperate, painful, like she had not tasted food in weeks. The man watched silently. He felt something strange in his chest, something heavy, yet warm. He had seen hungry humans before, but this was different. This girl looked like she had been forgotten by the whole galaxy. She finished the bread too fast, almost choking. The man quickly gave her his water. She drank it in long gulps, her glowing veins flickering brighter with each swallow. When she was done, she looked at him, not with fear now, but with confusion. Her golden eyes seemed to ask, "Why are you helping me?" The man smiled a little. "Because you needed it," he whispered. The girl's lips moved, but her voice was so soft it was almost a breath. "Thank you." For a moment, the night was quiet. The human and the alien child sat together in the ruins. Two lives from two different worlds connected by bread and water. But then footsteps echoed in the distance. The girl's head snapped up. Her eyes widened with fear. She looked at the man, then at the shadows beyond the broken wall. Without another word, she stood on shaky legs. Her small hand touched his arm for just a second, light, trembling, almost like a goodbye. Then she turned and ran into the darkness. The man stood confused. "Wait!" he called softly, but she was already gone. The footsteps faded and silence returned. He looked down at the empty bottle in his hand, the crumbs of bread on the ground. He felt like he had just lived something important, though he did not understand why. He walked home slowly, his stomach empty but his heart full of questions. Who was she? Why was she alone? Would he ever see her again? That night, as he lay in his small metal room, he could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her golden gaze. He had fed her once, but he wondered, had she found safety? Or had the darkness swallowed her? He did not know. But deep inside, a strange feeling whispered to him. This was not the end. The story of the hungry alien child had only just begun. The return. The years passed, but the human never forgot. He still remembered the night he had shared his food with the little alien girl. He could never erase her golden eyes from his memory. Sometimes, when he walked through the colony streets, he thought he saw her small shadow in the corners. But when he turned, there was nothing. Life moved on. He worked in the mines, fixed machines, and lived in his small metal home. Yet every night he wondered, did she survive? Did she find safety? No answer ever came. Until one evening, the man was at home, sitting at his table, fixing a broken tool. The air was quiet. The desert wind outside pushed sand against the walls, with soft rattles. He was about to eat his dinner when he heard it, a knock. He frowned. Few people visited him. Most miners were busy drinking or sleeping at this hour. He rose, walked to the door and pulled it open. His heart stopped. There she was, the little alien girl he had fed years ago, but she was no longer small. She was taller now, her frame stronger, her pale skin glowing brighter with those strange blue lines. Her golden eyes still carried that same spark, but now there was no hunger. There was strength. And beside her stood another figure, a woman, tall, regal, and commanding. Her robes shimmered with silver threads, and a crown-like crest rested on her forehead. Her eyes were the same golden fire as the girl's, but sharper, filled with authority and power. For a moment, the human just stared. He thought perhaps he was dreaming. But the girl smiled softly, the same shy smile he had seen long ago when she whispered, "Thank you." The woman stepped forward. Then, to his shock, she bowed. He froze. A queen, or something close to it, was bowing before him. "Human," she said, her voice strong yet trembling with emotion. "We have found you at last." The man blinked. "Found me?" The girl nodded, her eyes shining. "It's him, Mother. He's the one." The queen rose and looked straight into his eyes. "Do you remember a hungry child you fed in the ruins of this colony?" The man swallowed. His mind raced. "Yes," he whispered. "I remember." The queen's golden eyes softened, and for a second the power in her faded into something fragile. "That child was my daughter, and because of you, she lived." The human's chest tightened. He looked at the girl, who now stood tall, proud, and alive because of a simple piece of bread and a bottle of water. He felt warmth spread through him, but also confusion. I only gave her food," he said quietly. The queen shook her head. "No, you gave her hope when the galaxy had abandoned her. You gave her a chance to return to me. That act has echoed far beyond what you know." The human's mind spun. Why were they here? Why bow to him? He was just a miner, a nobody. The queen stepped closer, her voice lowered. "I searched for you. Years I searched. My guards thought it was foolish, but I told them, without him, without the human, none of this would be possible. You must be thanked. You must be honored." The girl suddenly moved forward. Before he could react, she wrapped her arms around him. The hug was awkward, trembling, but full of gratitude. Her voice shook as she whispered, "I never forgot you." The man's eyes burned. He had lived so long thinking his act had been forgotten by the universe. Yet here she was, alive, standing in his arms. But before the warmth could settle, he noticed something in the queen's eyes. A shadow. A weight. She was not only here to thank him. The queen's lips trembled. Her hands clenched tightly at her side. She took a deep breath as if preparing for something dangerous. The man felt it, suspense pressing down on the air. He looked at her carefully. "Why are you really here?" The queen met his gaze, her golden eyes shining with both desperation and determination. "Because I must ask you for something more," she said softly. "Something no human should ever be asked. But without you, my people, My daughter and I, we may not survive." The man froze. The words weighed heavy in his ears. What could a queen possibly want from him, a minor, a nobody? The girl stepped back, her golden eyes glimmering with hope and fear all at once. The queen slowly sank to one knee. Her voice broke as she spoke. "Human, will you hear my request?" The man's breath caught. His heart pounded. This was no ordinary meeting. This was the beginning of something far greater than he could imagine, and as the desert wind howled outside, he knew his quiet life was over. The past had returned, and it had come knocking at his door. The secret of the mother. The human stood frozen in his doorway. The desert wind pushed against the walls, and the stars outside blinked coldly. Inside, silence pressed down heavy between them. The alien queen knelt before him, her robes pooling on the dusty floor. Her golden eyes, sharp and powerful, were now filled with something he never expected to see. Fear. "Please," she whispered. "You must hear my truth." The man's voice shook. "Why me? I am just no one. A miner. A worker." The queen slowly rose to her feet. Her tall frame filled the room, but her eyes still held that fragile fire. She glanced at her daughter, the same little girl he had fed long ago. The girl gave a small nod as if urging her mother to speak. The queen took a deep breath. "You saved her when I could not. For that I owe you everything. But there is more you must know. More than you could ever imagine." The human frowned. His chest tightened. Something about the way she spoke made his skin prickle. "What secret?" The queen stepped closer. Her voice lowered into a heavy whisper. "My daughter is not just any child. She is heir to my throne. The blood in her veins carries the power of an ancient line, the line that rules my people. When you gave her food, you did not only save a starving girl, you saved the future of an entire empire." The human's breath caught. His eyes darted to the girl. She stood tall, proud, but there was sorrow in her golden gaze. She was more than a child. She was royalty. The queen continued. "After the war, enemies hunted us. They thought my daughter was lost. They thought the royal bloodline was broken. That is why she was alone, starving, hiding in the ruins. If she had died that night, my people would have fallen into chaos. But you changed everything." The man stepped back, his heart pounded. He remembered that night. The tiny hands clutching bread, the desperate eyes, the soft "thank you." He had never dreamed his act could carry such weight. "You're saying I saved an empire?" His voice cracked. The queen's eyes softened. "Yes, and for that I bow to you." The silence stretched. The man's hands trembled as he set down the tool he had been holding. His world, his simple, quiet world, was shattering. But then he saw the shadow in her face again. She was hiding. Something still. "What else?" he asked quietly. The queen's lips parted, but no words came at first. She looked at her daughter, then at him, as though weighing the risk of what she was about to say. Finally, her voice broke. "My enemies are not gone. They know my daughter lives now. They will come again. They will burn worlds to ash to break her bloodline. I can protect her, but not forever. Alone I am weak." The man's chest tightened. He could see the pain in her eyes. She was a queen, yet she spoke like a mother terrified of losing her child again. "I came here not only to thank you," she said. Her voice grew heavy, trembling. "I came because I must ask something no queen should ever ask of a human." The man's stomach twisted. He could feel the weight of her words before she even said them. "What is it?" he whispered. The queen stepped forward, her golden gaze burning into him. "You must stand beside us, not as a soldier, not as a servant, but as one of us, as family." The words hung in the air like thunder. The human blinked. "Family? What do you mean?" The queen's voice grew firmer, though her hands trembled. I mean this. I must ask you to marry me." The room fell silent. The human's mind spun. His heart thundered against his ribs. Marriage to an alien queen? It was madness. It was impossible. Yet her eyes pleaded with him, not as a ruler but as a mother desperate to save her child. The little girl stepped closer, her golden eyes wide. "Please," she whispered. "We trust you. You saved me once. You can save us again." The man could not breathe. He looked at them, mother and daughter, alien and human, standing in his small metal home. This was no dream. This was real. But behind their words, he felt danger. Shadows pressed at the edges of his mind. If he accepted, he would not only be a husband, he would be a shield against enemies he had never seen. A single human against empires. He swallowed hard. His voice cracked. "Why me? Why not one of your own?" The queen's answer was soft but full of weight. "Because my people do not understand mercy. They understand power, fear, and blood. But you..." She looked into his eyes, almost breaking. "You gave bread to a starving child with nothing to gain. That act is more powerful than any crown. That is why it must be you." The man stood frozen. His whole life had been quiet, small, meaningless, and now the galaxy's future was being placed in his hands. The queen bowed her head, her voice breaking. "I beg you, do not refuse." The human's world tilted. He felt the air grow heavy, as though the universe itself was waiting for his answer. And deep in the silence he realized his life would never be the same again. The impossible request, the words echoed inside the small metal room like thunder. "I must ask you to marry me." The human froze. His body felt heavy, as if the floor had turned to stone beneath his boots. He stared at the alien queen, her golden eyes burning with desperation, her tall figure trembling despite her power. He wondered if he had heard her wrong. A queen, a ruler of stars, begging him, a minor, a nobody, to be her husband? The silence was unbearable. The desert wind outside rattled the walls, and the faint hum of machines in the colony seemed louder than ever. Finally he spoke. His voice was hoarse. "You can't be serious." But the queen only lowered her head, her voice sharp with pain. "I am." The human's mind raced. "Why me? I have nothing. I am not strong. I am not royal. I am not even from your world." The queen stepped closer. Her voice grew heavy with urgency. "Because you are human. Because you showed mercy, when no one else would. My people bow to power, but they will follow a man who gave food to a starving child. With you by my side, they will see hope, not just fear. Without you, I cannot keep my daughter safe. Without you, my empire will fall." Her words stabbed into him. The girl, the same child he had once fed, watched with wide golden eyes, filled with both fear and hope. She clutched her mother's hand tightly as if afraid he would say no and vanish from their lives forever. The human shook his head slowly. "Marriage. It's not just words, it's a life, a promise. You're asking me to carry your world on my shoulders." The queen's eyes glimmered with pain. She fell to her knees again, her regal body bowing low before him. "I beg you." Human, not as a queen, not as a ruler, but as a mother who does not want to lose her child again. Her voice broke, and for the first time he saw tears in her golden eyes. The human's chest tightened. He had lived a life of silence and machines, with no family, no one to care if he lived or died. Yet here was a queen, kneeling in his home, pleading with him as if he was the only man who could save her and her daughter. But still, it felt impossible. "What if I say yes?" he asked, his voice rough. "What happens then?" The queen lifted her head slowly, her gaze sharp as a blade. "Then you will be my husband, the protector of my heir, the shield of my people. Together we will stand against the enemies who wish to erase us, with your name tied to mine. No blade will touch her without facing the wrath of both our worlds." The weight of her words pressed down on him. He thought of the enemies she spoke of, faceless, shadowy, powerful. He thought of armies, of fire raining from the sky. He thought of himself, a man who had never held power, suddenly standing at the center of a storm. He almost laughed bitterly. I'm just a miner. What do I know of empires? The queen's lips trembled, but she held his gaze. You know kindness. That is more than most kings. The little girl stepped forward. Her voice was soft, trembling, but filled with strength. Please. I don't want to lose my mother again, and I don't want to lose you. The human's throat tightened. He looked into her golden eyes and saw not royalty, not power, but the same child he had found starving years ago. A girl who had survived because he had shared his bread. But before he could answer, a sudden noise shattered the fragile moment. A thud. Outside. Heavy. The human's head snapped up. The queen stiffened, her hand moving to a blade hidden beneath her robes. The girl clutched his sleeve tightly. The noise came again, closer. The scrape of boots on sand, the faint click of metal against metal. The queen's voice dropped into a whisper. They have found us. The human's heart pounded. He rushed to the window and peered out into the dark. Shadows moved among the broken walls. Red lights flickered on weapons. Figures in black armor crept closer, their helmets glowing faintly. In the night, enemies. The queen gripped his arm, her golden eyes fierce. You see now why I beg you. They will never stop. If you walk away, they will kill us both. But if you stand with me, if you become one with me, they will fear you as much as they fear me. The little girl pressed her forehead against his arm, whispering, Don't leave us. The human's mind spun. A choice stood before him. Refuse and walk away, letting them be hunted and perhaps killed, or accept, and step into a war he never asked for. The shadows outside grew closer. Guns were raised. The colony wind carried the metallic click of weapons being loaded. The queen looked at him, her voice breaking into a desperate cry. Choose, human. Will you abandon us now, or will you stand as my husband and make the galaxy tremble? The human's breath caught. His hand shook. His heart thundered. The impossible request hung in the air. And outside, death waited at his door. Enemies in the shadows. The human's breath came fast. The night outside his home was no longer quiet. Shadows crept closer. Red lights blinked like eyes in the darkness. The sound of metal boots striking sand grew louder. The queen's golden eyes narrowed. She gripped the hilt of her hidden blade, her robe flowing like dark fire around her. They found us sooner than I expected, she whispered. The girl pressed herself against the human's side, trembling but silent. Her small fingers clutched his shirt tightly. Her golden eyes stared at him with the same plea as before. Don't leave us. The human swallowed hard. He was no soldier. He had never fought in wars, never stood against armored killers. He was a miner, a worker with rough hands and a tired body. Yet now, fate had placed him between death and two lives that looked to him for protection. The queen's voice was firm. Listen to me, human. If you run, they will kill you first. If you stay silent, they will kill us all. But if you fight, her words were cut short. A window shattered, a flash of red light seared through the room, slamming into the wall and spraying sparks. The girl screamed and dropped to the floor. The human pulled her close, his heart thundering in his chest. The queen's blade hissed as she drew it, the metal glowing with strange alien energy. She moved like lightning, slicing through the air as another armored soldier burst through the door. The strike cut clean, and the intruder fell without a sound. But more came. Dark shapes poured into the colony street, their rifles glowing, their movement sharp and ruthless. Their helmets reflected the moonlight, their eyes cold and merciless. They were hunters, and their prey was inside this house. The queen's voice rose above the chaos. Stay behind me, she ordered, but the human's eyes darted to the tools on his table. Wrenches, pipes, heavy steel pieces from machines he repaired every day. His hands reached out, gripping the thickest bar. His heart raced, but his arms felt steady. Another soldier crashed through the window. Without thinking, the human swung. The steel bar slammed against the intruder's helmet with a loud crack. The soldier fell to the ground, unmoving. The girl gasped. The Queen's eyes flicked to him, a flash of surprise crossing her face. "You fight," she whispered. The human didn't answer. He only tightened his grip on the bar. His hands shook, but something inside him burned hotter than fear. He would not let the girl who once whispered, "Thank you," die here. Gunfire erupted outside. Beams of red light cut through the air. The Queen moved with grace, blocking shots with her glowing blade, her movements sharp and perfect. But there were too many. For every soldier she cut down, two more advanced. The human's lungs burned as he swung again, knocking another attacker into the wall. His arms screamed with pain, but he refused to stop. Each strike was clumsy, raw, but filled. With desperate strength, the girl cried out suddenly. A soldier grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the door. "No!" the human roared. He lunged forward, slamming the steel bar into the soldier's chest. The armor dented with a sickening crunch, and the enemy fell. The girl stumbled back into his arms, tears streaking her pale cheeks. She looked up at him with wide golden eyes. "You won't let them take me." He held her close, panting. "Never." The Queen fought with fire, her golden eyes blazing with fury. Yet even she began to slow, her breath sharp, her strikes desperate. There were simply too many. The human's heart hammered. He looked at the soldiers still surrounding the house. Dozens, maybe more. Their weapons glowed in the night, ready to fire. The Queen shouted, "We cannot hold them here, we must escape." The human nodded quickly. His mind raced. He knew these colony streets better than anyone. He knew the tunnels under the mining fields, the broken paths through the ruins. Maybe, just maybe, they could lose the hunters there. But to get there, they had to break through the enemy line. The Queen turned to him, her face pale but fierce. "Stay close, do not let her go." The girl clung to his side, her small hands gripping his arm with all her strength. The human swallowed, then gripped his steel bar tighter. His arms ached, his legs trembled. But deep inside, something pushed him forward. He was no longer just a miner. He was a shield. The Queen raised her blade high, its glow lighting the night like fire. "Now," she cried. Together they burst from the broken home. The street exploded with light and sound. Gunfire filled the air, red beams slicing through the dust. The Queen struck like a storm, her blade cutting down enemies left and right. The humans swung with raw power, knocking soldiers aside with every desperate strike. The girl stayed pressed, between them, shielded by their bodies. Step by step, blow by blow, they forced their way through the storm of shadows. At last the humans saw it, the dark mouth of the tunnel ahead, hidden behind broken walls. Hope flickered in his chest. But behind them, the hunters roared, their voices cold and mechanical. More shadows moved in the distance, rushing to cut them off. The fight was far from over, and as the human dragged the girl into the tunnel, his chest heaving, he realized something terrifying. This was only the beginning, the choice. The tunnel was dark and damp. Drops of water fell from the ceiling, echoing like soft drums in the silence. The human's breath came hard as he held the little girl close, her small body trembling against him. Behind, the Queen walked with her glowing blade still in hand, its faint light casting strange shadows on the walls. They had escaped the colony street, but not the danger. Every sound in the tunnels seemed louder than it should be. Every echo might have been footsteps. Every flicker of shadow might have been another soldier. The Queen's face was calm, but her golden eyes burned with thought. She walked silently, her robes brushing against the wet floor. Finally she spoke, her voice sharp but low. "They will not stop. They will hunt us through worlds. You must see this now." The human nodded weakly, his chest still burning from the fight. "I see it." His voice was rough. "But what I don't see is why I'm supposed to be the answer to all of this." The Queen stopped. The faint glow of her blade painted her face in gold. She turned, staring at him with eyes that pierced deep into his soul. "Because you are the only one who can change the path," she said. "I have soldiers, yes. I have fleets, yes. But they fight with fear and power. That is not enough. My enemies expect that. They do not expect you." The human frowned. "Me? A minor?" The queen's voice trembled but did not break. "You are more than a minor. You gave mercy to my child when she was nothing in your eyes. That act has more weight than 1,000 armies. If my people see you as my husband, if they see you stand beside me, then they will believe in something greater than bloodlines. They will believe in unity. They will believe in hope." The little girl looked up at him, her golden eyes shining in the dim tunnel light. "Please," she whispered, her voice soft but strong. "We need you." The human's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, but his words refused to come. His life had been so small. Fixing machines, eating alone, sleeping in silence. He had never thought his hands could hold anything greater than broken metal. And now, those same hands were being asked to hold the fate of 2 worlds. He shook his head. "If I say yes, my life is gone. I'll never be just me again." The queen stepped closer, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "If you say yes, you will never be alone again. You will be a husband, a protector, a father. You will carry weight, yes, but you will also carry love. Something no miner's job could ever give you." Her words cut deep. The human looked at the girl pressed against him, clinging to his arm. He thought of the night years ago when she had whispered thank you over a piece of bread. He thought of her mother now, kneeling in his home, begging for something no queen should ever beg for. But his mind also saw shadows, armies marching, enemies hunting, fire raining from the skies. Was he ready to stand against that? Could he? The tunnel grew silent again. The only sound was water dripping, slow and steady, as if counting the seconds until his answer. Finally, the queen spoke again. "So I ask you one last time. If you refuse, we will run until they catch us. My daughter will die. My people will break. But if you accept..." She took a breath, her voice shaking. "If you accept, we will stand together. And even if the galaxy burns, we will burn as one flame." The human's chest heaved. He felt the weight of both choices crushing him. To say no was safer, for him. But it would mean leaving them to die. To say yes was madness, but it was also the only path forward. The girl tugged at his sleeve. Her small voice broke the silence. "Don't let me lose my mother again." His breath caught. His heart twisted. And in that moment, he understood. His life had never been about machines or silence. It had always been waiting for this. For them. He looked into the queen's eyes. Steady now. "If I say yes, I am not a king. I am not a warrior. I am just a man." The queen nodded, her golden eyes glimmering. "Then be a man. Be the man who gave bread to a starving child. That is enough." The human's lips trembled. Slowly he nodded. "Yes." The girl gasped, her golden eyes flooding with tears. She hugged him tightly, her voice shaking. "Thank you." The queen's face softened. For a moment, the fire in her eyes turned into light. She lowered her blade, her voice breaking. "Then it is decided. From this day, you are mine, and I am yours. And together, we will face the storm." But even as her words echoed in the tunnel, a sound came from behind them. Boots, metal boots, striking stone. The hunters had found their trail. The queen raised her blade again. The human tightened his grip on the girl. His chest pounded, but this time his fear was different. It was not the fear of being alone. It was the fear of losing what he had just chosen to protect. The choice had been made, and there was no turning back. The human husband, the sound of boots echoed in the tunnel. Metal clashed against stone, marching closer with every second. The queen stood tall with her glowing blade, the little girl pressed tight against the human. and the man himself gripped a steel bar in his hand. His chest pounded, but this time, it was not the fear of running. It was the fear of failing the family he had just chosen. The hunters came fast, their red lights cutting through the dark. Shadows filled the tunnel, their weapons raised. The Queen's voice rang out like fire. "Stand with me, husband!" The human's heart jolted at the word. Husband. Just hours ago he had been a miner, a nobody. Now he was something else, something larger. He raised his steel bar high, his voice rough and fierce. "For her, for you, for us." The tunnel exploded into chaos. Red beams lit the air. The Queen's blade flashed, slicing through armor, her strikes sharp and elegant. The human swung with raw power, each strike heavy and desperate, fueled not by skill, but by determination. The little girl stayed pressed between them, her golden eyes glowing in the shadows, her small hands clutching at hope. The fight felt endless, but together, they moved like one. Where the Queen cut, the human struck. Where the human faltered, the Queen defended. And through it all, the girl's eyes never left him, watching as the man who had once given her bread now fought to keep her alive. At last, silence returned. The hunters lay scattered on the tunnel floor, their weapons dim, their shadows gone. The Queen lowered her blade, her chest heaving. The human leaned on his steel bar, his body aching. The girl ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist, her voice shaking. "You didn't leave us. You really stayed." He rested a trembling hand on her head, his voice soft but steady. "I promised. I keep my promises." The Queen stepped closer, her golden eyes fixed on him. There was fire there, yes, but also something gentler, something like respect, something like love. "You are no longer just a miner. From this moment, you are my husband, and the galaxy will know your name." The word struck him harder than any blow. Husband, protector, father. He had never thought such things could belong to him. Yet here he was, standing in the dark, holding a child who trusted him, and looking into the eyes of a queen who had chosen him. But the Queen's gaze darkened. "This victory is small. Our enemies will come again. They will not stop until my bloodline is erased. But with you beside me, they will see something they cannot crush." The human nodded slowly. "Then let them come. If they want to take her, they'll have to go through me first." The Queen's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "And that is why you are worthy." Days later, the galaxy changed. The news spread like fire. The alien Queen had chosen a husband, and he was human. Across star systems, people whispered. Some called it madness, some called it betrayal, but others called it hope. For the first time, humans and aliens looked at each other and saw something new. If a miner and a queen could stand together, maybe enemies could become family. Maybe the galaxy did not need to live in fear forever. The wedding was held in the grand hall of the Queen's palace, a chamber of silver and light. Aliens of every kind filled the seats, their voices low, their eyes wide. At the center stood the Queen in her shining robes, her golden eyes burning bright. Beside her stood the human, dressed in simple clothes, his steel bar replaced with a ceremonial blade he barely knew how to hold. And between them stood the little girl, her golden eyes glowing with joy. The Queen raised her voice so all could hear. "This man gave life to my child when the stars turned their backs. He gave mercy when others gave none. Today he is not only my husband, but the shield of our people. Let his name be spoken across worlds." The hall thundered with voices. Some cheered, some shouted in anger. But no one could deny what they saw, a queen and a human standing as one. The human looked down at the girl, then at the Queen. His chest swelled with something new, something powerful. For the first time in his life, he was not alone. He leaned close to the Queen, his voice low. "I don't know how to be a king, but I know how to fight for those I love." The Queen's lips curved. "That is all I ask." And so, the miner became a husband. The human became a symbol, and the galaxy, whether it wanted to or not, would never be the same again. But deep in the stars, shadows stirred. The enemies had seen what happened. They had seen the Queen's new husband, the human shield who stood at her side. And they swore the fire was not finished. War was coming. Yet in the middle of that storm, a human, a queen, and a child stood together. And their story, the story of the hungry alien child, her mother, and the man who chose them, was only beginning.